Today is also a happy day because we are finally rolling out the QR codes, the quick response codes, which will, I think, give our contact tracers the very best information which is available, and it will be giving them access to that information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that there are no delays in putting people into quarantine when it is required to keep our state safe. It's a fantastic new if you like, tool for our contact tracers in South Australia. That information is kept very securely. It is encrypted and it is only accessed by SA Health when they need that information to, if you like, advance their case for getting people into quarantine as quickly as possible. Now, the Transition Committee met this morning. There are no changes coming out of that meeting, but they will be meeting again this Friday. We've said from day one we don't want to keep any of our restrictions in place for 1 day longer than we need to, but at this stage the unequivocal health advice is that we need to keep the current new lower level in restrictions in place for the time being. That will be reviewed again this coming Friday. And I'll now pass over to Professor Nicola Spurrier for the daily COVID-19 update with some good news for South Australia.
Thank you and good morning. So really good news, no new cases here in South Australia, which is fantastic. But I do have to update people on one other case which is not a problem whatsoever. We've just done a thorough routine audit, and because we have been so busy with the Parafield cluster, we didn't add a case to our list, and it was an international traveller. So it hasn't been previously publicly reported, and I'd just like to give you those details. So this case was an overseas arrival who came in on the 15th of November. She was in a Medi hotel at the time when we had the positive case result. So of course we've put in practice everything that needed to be put in place for this particular person, and she's had all of the essential medical follow-up. The reason that that case was admitted was, you might recall, because of the Parafield cluster, we changed our cut-off time because we wanted to give people in South Australia all the latest information, and so we were reporting cases to the public more immediately rather than looking at that 24-hour cut-off time. So she's not at all linked to the cluster, and in fact she has since been cleared of the virus and has now left the Medi hotel, but just for completeness. So our Parafield cluster statistics, we have 33 cases linked to that cluster, but 562 total cases for South Australia overall. Now, we've also got good news that a significant reduction in people coming out of quarantine. So we've now got around 1,100 close contacts or contacts of contacts in quarantine directly linked to that cluster. We are still encouraging people across South Australia to get tested, even with mild symptoms. And just a reminder, if you haven't caught on, but we have been pushing this information out very broadly, that there were 8 venues that we were particularly concerned about when we had somebody who was infectious in the community back on the 22nd of November. So we've got 11 active cases now in the state, and good news really is that the testing rate has remained high. So 6,500 tests processed yesterday, and thanking again ACL and ClinPath for their assistance with this. So very happy to take questions, but really a good news day here in South Australia. I am personally thrilled to have that border open with Victoria at long last.
Professor, how do you miss that case?
So the case wasn't missed, it just was that we didn't publicly report it. So of course we knew that the person was positive and that they got all of the assessment and the testing, because we have that process wrapping around our Medi hotels. So it's just that we hadn't had an opportunity to tell the public about it. We really had the focus for telling the public about the Parafield cluster.
So just to be clear, you didn't miss it with the actual treatment of it, but
no.
Did you miss it actually reporting it? Did people when were you aware of this case?
So we've got one of our very good media and comms people that thought that there was a case that came up on our dashboard that we hadn't reported publicly, and so we wanted just to make sure that that was reported today. But it's really of no concern or consequence. It's not linked at all to the Parafield cluster.
Why hadn't you reported it publicly?
So just explaining again, when we had done all of the reporting, we had changed the reporting time. So normally we would only report those people that have been cases up until midnight. But because of the Parafield cluster, we've actually been including new cases that have come through. So, for example, on Saturday morning, around about 7 o'clock, I saw we had a new case and we reported it that day. And the reason being is there was important information that we needed to give to the public. And because our reporting times, our cut-off times changed, unfortunately this was left off the numbers. But it didn't mean it was missed. The person has been dealt with. In fact, they have got over COVID and they've been discharged from the Medi Hotel.
Does this risk undermining your public health message and, to quote one of your phrases, undoing the good, where this seems to be a pattern of misinformation or mistakes internally and things are not getting picked up? Do you have concerns that your very good public messaging now is being undermined?
Look, Andrew, I think what you can say is there is nothing tidy about a pandemic. It is it's inherently unstable biological system. You've got a virus that's difficult to predict, but you've also got human behaviour. We were in the middle of this very serious cluster. We had an absolute focus on providing the public with the information they needed at the time so that as a society we could get over this and look at Christmas going back to normal. So unfortunately we have got this case that hasn't been on the public record. I'm making that clear today that it's now on the public record. And as I said, there is nothing tidy about a pandemic.
Is the testing rate still a couple of thousand off what you were really hoping for? And are you going to lift those back to the 9,000 levels you were talking about last week?
Look, it's really over to the public getting out and getting tested. We've put in place so many testing opportunities. We've tried to make it as comfortable as possible, particularly, I think, at the showground. So again, I just urge every South Australian, even though this is a day of really great celebration, got Victoria's borders up, we've got this QR reader system in place, which is really a game changer for us in CDCB. But it really is a time for every South Australian over these next 2 weeks, if you're getting any symptoms at all, and even past those 2 weeks, any mild symptoms, even if you're just feeling a little bit down that day and you can go, oh, well, it's possibly because I had too much to drink the night before. Don't worry about it. Just go and get tested. If you're not feeling well, get tested.